And joining us now, we have Nadia Berger, a licensed clinical social worker. And Nadia, we want to talk, first of all, about, we've heard a little bit, in our previous segments that a lot of times foster care children sometimes come from backgrounds of trauma. Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about how that may impact them moving forward.
Yeah, whenever I'm asked about what issues are common among kids in the foster care system, one of the first things that comes to mind is post-traumatic stress disorder. Kids within the system are twice as likely as combat veterans to be diagnosed with PTSD.
Wow.
And the effects of trauma on the young mind, of the mind of a child, is somewhat different and in some cases worse than the mind of an adult who had a healthy upbringing and then experiences trauma later in life.
And so when we talk about trauma, what sorts of things might that mean?
Yeah, abuse, neglect, just constant chaos and instability. We all have a deep-seated need to be loved, for consistency, for a predictable environment, and many kids in the system just didn't get that.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about what other skills that kids kind of have to learn to develop when they're in that situation.
Yeah, a lot of kids develop survival skills that are very necessary maybe in their family of origin or previous foster homes, but they may enter a healthy environment and those survival skills are not healthy or appropriate. Anything from food issues are very common, hoarding food, anger, lack of trust, control, manipulation. And if you can view those issues as survival skills as opposed to this child is just manipulating me, that will really help you approach them and deal with those in a more appropriate way.
Is that difficult to do, though, as maybe a foster parent or a caregiver?
It is. It is. There are things you can do that across the board are very helpful for kids. Every kid is different. Every kid needs something different. But things such as making their environment and home life as predictable as possible is always helpful. Things like having a schedule that if they can read, the schedule is up there. They can see, okay, this is what we're doing today. Even this is what we're eating this week and when we eat can help them feel safe and sometimes reduce some of those undesirable behaviors.
What else can parents do? We have up there meet the physical and emotional needs. What's the difference between those two and how can parents do that?
Yeah, obviously physical needs are usually pretty obvious. The kids need to know they're going to be fed, they're going to be clothed, they're going to be taken care of physically. Emotionally, it's interesting because a lot of those kids didn't have the early childhood emotional needs met, such as bonding and attachment and trust building that we all need. And so it's really important for foster parents to know, even though this child may be older, some of those core needs may have not been met. Mm-hmm. And so I really need to think about, what does this child need in order to build trust?
Now, are there different strategies that parents should use with older or younger children, and how might the age affect the child?
Yeah, that's a really good question. One thing we always talk about is the emotional age of the child may be very different than their biological age. It may be a 15-year-old who emotionally is a 6-year-old. Okay. And so knowing that, you can respond to them as, okay, this 15-year-old is acting like a 6-year-old emotionally. Sometimes you got to respond like you would to a younger child.
And what about building trust and a trusting relationship? Because, sometimes either one party or the other or both can be so anxious for that to just be in place.
Absolutely. A big thing is being patient. Just know it's going to take time. If they've had years of trauma, it's going to take time to build trust. Being consistent and just helping them see, I'm going to be the same person today and tomorrow. Apologizing when you make mistakes. All parents make mistakes. All parents lose it. If you do, go back to that kid and say, I am sorry, I messed up. I should have responded this way. And that can do a whole lot in building that trust.
Okay, all right, Nadia, thanks so much for joining us.